How far was the United States defending democracy in Southeast Asia? Overall, the United States was not defending democracy in Asia for a number of reasons. So definitive statements being arrived at the start. The reasons for this were, they were more concerned with the communist threat, that's the first point identified. The nature of Diem's regime. The US government would be perceived as weak on communism, so that's obviously referring to domestic issues. And Seato put Southeast Asia countries under protection from communist aggression, and their belief in the domino theory made them afraid that communism would spread to other countries. The most important reason why America was not defending democracy was that they were more concerned with the communist threat. Now what's missing here immediately is that I'm assuming that this is the principal reason, but it's not been made explicitly clear. After World War II, the French began reasserting their dominance in Indochina. They were not there to create democracy in these regions. They were imperialistic. However, when America discovered that Ho Chi Minh was a communist, although he was primarily a nationalist, they began sending aid to the French, showing they were more concerned with preventing communism from spreading than from defending democracy, therefore identifying that French colonial role as not being a democratic one. America was anti-colonialism, so it was quite surprising that they helped the French against the communists. This shows that they were not protecting democracy, but instead more content on defending against communism because the French were not going to give Vietnam independence and allow democracy to flourish. We're clearly identifying here an American pragmatism, is that preventing the spread of communism was far more important than any other principle. Furthermore, the leader of South Vietnam Diem was not creating democracy. Instead, he had a harsh, brutal dictatorship, not really the ideal Western democracy the Americans were hoping for. However, because he was anti-communist and there was no one better than him, they let him continue with his brutal regime, leading to the arrest and killing of thousands of civilians. The Americans, though, did not care that this was happening as long as he was preventing communism from spreading. So again, the student is reiterating this point that pragmatism outweighed the American virtues and desire to impose democracy. Therefore, this is the second reason America was not defending democracy in Southeast Asia, because they were backing a dictatorship responsible for the deaths of thousands of people. But backed this position because fundamentally the regime was anti-communist. Additionally, domestic policies are another reason why America was not defending democracy in Southeast Asia. As a result of having a democracy in the first place, it could be argued that they were containing communism only because of what happened to China. The communist paranoia at this time was still high. Now, the candidate here is obviously clearly referring to McCarthyism, but not, interestingly, providing with any dates to clarify this, so that's an omission on their part. Also, it was much easier for an American voter to see Ho Chi Minh as a communist rather than a nationalist, so voters were more concerned with communism spreading than creating and protecting democracies in the free world. Therefore, this is the third most important reason the Americans were not defending democracy, but doing it for their own political benefits, i.e., pragmatism again, such as national prestige and the result of their superpower status. Lastly, Seato and domino theory show why America was not defending democracy in Vietnam. Seato was an organisation set up to prevent the aggression of communism, similar to its European counterpart NATO. This resulted in the Americans being able to enter many countries under this treaty to prevent the spread of communism, even if the country was not democratic. Okay, so again, identifying this pragmatic, we would rather prevent communism than explicitly support democracy. Also, the domino theory caused the American communist paranoia to increase because of the threat that if one country should fall, the rest will follow. This led to the involvement in many countries such as Korea and Vietnam because of this perceived communist and domino theory threat. Therefore, they were not defending democracy, but instead preventing the spread of communism, explicitly revisiting the contents of the introduction and the plan established there. In conclusion, the Americans were not defending democracy in Southeast Asia, but instead preventing the spread of communism. This is because many countries where they intervened, such as Korea and Vietnam, were not democracies but dictatorships. Also, the threat of being portrayed as weak on communism, whilst the White House caused many presidents to involve themselves in conflicts such as Vietnam, which they could not win. Along with the organisation Seato, this is why they were not defending democracy in Southeast Asia.